Well, we're still enjoying ourselves here at the National Hamfest 2018. I found Stuart from VMARS. Stuart, tell us about yourself, what you do here.
Right, well, I'm Public Relations Officer for the Vintage and Military Amateur Radio Society. We formed this group back in 1999, so next year we'll celebrate our 20th anniversary. Now, VMARS is an organisation of people who collect, repair, research, historical, ex-military and also commercial, maritime, whatever you'd like to see in the way of vintage equipment. And basically we keep the hobby alive with regard to vintage equipment. But it just doesn't cover communications equipment. It also covers things like historical research, modes of communication, semaphore, teleprinter operating, line telephone exchanges. Anything you think about in the way of communications, VMARS has a foothold in. And especially now that we've got 560 members. We started off back in 1999, having held our inaugural AGM at Station X, Bletchley Park. 45 members turned up. We're now 560. So I think that's a credit to the members that have come to join us and all their individual expertises that we've got.
I think that's absolute brilliant there, Stuart. Generating that number of members. And the military radio side of our hobby is quite a little bit specialised, but I know quite a few people who do it, and it is interesting. It's slightly different, but it is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I say, with our 560 members, we do have a lot of ex-military people, whether it be Navy, Army or Air Force. I'm ex-Army myself, so I knew a little bit about different genres of radios from the late 60s right the way through to the late 80s, early 90s. So my expertise covers a sort of a fairly broad band there, but our members typically collect equipment from sort of World War II right the way through to present day. And as I say, if they're not ex-military, some are historians, some are general radio amateurs, some are shortwave listeners, and some are ex-government defence workers. So they've got even more knowledge than some of us radio amateurs have. So we all pool that knowledge. We've got an extensive archive. And of course we've got a publications editor who's here today, Bronick. You may want to have a chat with him shortly, and he can tell you more on the publication side. But we certainly have a wide remit within VMARS.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, I mean, I know in sort of the club I'm a member of, there's probably 5% of the members. That doesn't sound many, but it's a reasonable number that are interested in military radio,
yes,
and more people are coming along. Absolutely.
Well, that's the case, I think, in most radio clubs. We often get people coming here from the individual radio clubs, especially here at the Newark Hamfest, from up and down the country, and say, oh, we've got one of those in our club, or we're doing a project in our club. And of course, it works both ways then. We can either recruit them to become members of VMARS or share our information and skills with them. So we're always happy to complement what the public desire from us, if you like, and vice versa. Because quite often we'll recruit a member, or they'll recruit themselves, and there'll be a super duper member who's got that little bit of font of knowledge about something because we don't know everything, about something we didn't know of before. And we've got quite a few clandestine people as well. Some people who, done quite some cool things in their time, from the days of Bletchley Park and through to the days of the Falklands campaign, Bosnia, the Gulf War. So we've got a lot of specialists out there, not only Army, as I say, Air Force and Navy.
Yeah. Well, I know a couple of guys that are really into what you do, and I'm sure they're members.
Indeed, they may well be. Yeah, I don't know who they are, but I'm sure they will be. And if they're not, they can always look on our website, www.vmars.org, and a very nice website, actually. We've got a young man, a former chairman called Ian Underwood, Fox 4 Victor Sugar Charlie, previously Mike 0 Yankee Mike Kilo. Ian has just revamped the website, and you really need to look at that website because it's absolutely brilliant, and it's got all the information you need about VMARS.
Now, just before we pull your colleague in, I've noticed outside you've got a couple of stations and Land Rovers, so you've actually got a demonstration as well as a stand here.
We have actually. This year, we in 2016, let me just say, we ran a WS19, a wireless set 19 station outside with the high power amplifier, just as it would have been sort of in 1942, 1944, whatever, and post-war. And that was very successful. Last year was a bit of a false start and we didn't do anything. But this year, two of our members have turned up, one with a Series 3 Land Rover signals vehicle, and the other one also with a Series 3 lightweight Land Rover, little air portable Land Rover, which are quite rare and very well sought after. And both have got military equipment in of the day, fully operational, and they've actually been on air from here at Hamfest, not only on the VMARS 80 metre net, they've been on 40 metres. We've just gone on to 60 metres this afternoon, 5 megahertz, and they've had fantastic reports just using a half-wave dipole up at about 35 feet, military spec one I hasten to add. So I think really the average report has been 5.8 to 5.9 and some at 20 over 9. So you can't get better than that. And I know that the showground organisers here at Hamfest have welcomed us with open arms, and I must take this opportunity to thank the organising committee of Hamfest for all that they do for the clubs and societies that take part in the event.
Well, that's great, Stuart. Okay, well, thanks for the newsletter editor, I believe.
Indeed, yes.
And you've done a lot of work with this group, and your colleague Stuart was praising the newsletter and publications you put together.
Well, we obviously try our best, but the outcome, of course, is dependent on the authors. So we rely on our membership to provide articles, but we also source them from outside the membership. And the quality, of course, is in the presentation and what we receive from them. You know, we make silk purses out of silk here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here today you've got a piece of military equipment, grit green, but the thing that impressed me quite a lot was this device here, and I'm going to be a total moron here because I don't know what it is, but it is, the quality is really impressively built, and I believe you built it.
Yeah, yes, I did. What it is, in fact, it's the RF deck from an 80 meter transmitter. It's a powerful transmitter. It's got an 813 in the PA, so that is capable of providing the full 100 watts. That's the legal output that we can use. It has a number of unusual features, so it does use modern technology as well as combining the valve technology of the 1960s. But essentially, it's a conventional lineup. So it's got a VFO, which is a valve VFO. It uses a 12BY7A. It's got a buffer. It's got a doubler because it works at half the frequency in terms of the signal generation, and then it amplifies it in the 813. Underneath, there are numerous features that would be unusual. So, for example, you don't often see toroids in equipment like this. That is the tune circuit for the doubler output. The modulation is actually applied here only to the anode of the 813. Again, an unusual feature. And the way that works is that the screen grid connection actually goes through a choke to a 300 volt power supply, and it's not modulated. But when modulation is applied to the PA through the anode, the screen grid actually modulates itself, and that actually produces the desired amplitude modulated waveform that we would normally see. So what I'm trying to show you is that this is a transmitter that is based on well-established techniques, but it has a few novel features, and it does really work very well indeed.
So that's a very, very interesting device. Lovely piece of construction there, Bronick. And as I say, if this is the sort of thing that VMARS do, then I suggest more and more of our listeners should get involved with you, because that's really interesting.
Well, we obviously hope so. I mean, we publish the quarterly journal Signal, and that has write-ups of a whole range of things. I mean, it has historical information. So this is an article about the wireless operator in World War II in aircraft. But then as you go through it, you'll see there's an item on antennas. And that's quite technical. There's an item on restoration of whatever, in this case, power supplies to use with the 1154 transmitter, which was the standard aircraft transmitter that was used in World War II, and so on and so forth. And there's always a nice picture on the back to tempt the reader.
Yeah, well, as I say, that interesting magazine, and I don't know if it was yours or whether you managed to buy it, but there was a couple of 1155s and an 1154 out in the car park on the Brigham By, not on the Brigham By, the flea market yesterday, and I thought, no, I can't afford it. But they were a lovely old piece of equipment.
Yeah. And in fact, the person that was selling it was one of our members, and a very eminent member at that, I should say. And that equipment was in tip-top condition because I've heard it on the air myself.
All right. Well, I know somebody who would have probably ripped my hand off for it if I'd have bought it for him. But there you go. Listen, thank you very, very much for your time. Enjoy the show, and let us wish you every success.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and we hope that the programme you produce is well received as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.